Awesome. We're ready to start. It's 5 o'clock. So as promised, we want to get this going on time. For those of you who couldn't make it, we've actually shared a live streaming link. It's an unlisted link, so we've sent that email out as well. But a very, very, very warm welcome. Thank you so much for joining us on a Thursday evening. We know Bangalore's traffic can be unpredictable and it takes a while, but appreciate the effort for enabling an on-time start. So on behalf of everyone at WaterBridge Ventures, welcome. We have two very exciting panels ahead of us. We have Anshoo of Magicpin and we have Ramesh Bafna from Zepto, and very excited to get this going with a short AV on WaterBridge, and then we'll get straight into the panels. Thank you once again for making it.
If you think about building generational outcomes, you can't have a wrong way of doing right things. And you have to get it right from day one.
There's no way that you can't have radical self-belief and be fearless and ambitious and audacious if you have to build category-first companies.
Look, let's not forget the protagonists. The protagonists are the founders, the founding team. These founders will scale across generational boundaries, both in the area of Indian entrepreneurs building for India and Bharat, as well as Indian product builders building for the world.
पूरी mobility को solve करना पड़ेगा, public transport को. That's when we are going to be taking buses.
It's not just an animal feed protein company that we are trying to build. It's an insect biotechnology company that we are trying to build.
What Salesforce is for a sales team or GitHub is for an engineering team, we are that home for a data organization.
Institutional investing has a lot of nuances attached to it. How do you select the space in which you want to be? That is driven by a thesis. A lot of hard work goes into identifying what we like and what we don't like.
I think that's something that has really helped us, I would say, find the right horses for courses. Therefore, we've always had the ability to take some contrarian investment bets.
They're founder first, so they'll bet on the founder, not the product or the market. It takes a lot of conviction to bet on founders because in the early stage, the market can be changed, the product can be changed, everything can be changed except the founders, right?
Multiple times in my discussions with Manish, the first thing that he asks is, Angad, what do you want to do?
Because at the end of the day, every founding team rightfully has strong passion to solve a problem. And if you aren't listening, you're not appreciative of that passion, you're not going to be able to identify the winners in your crystal ball.
I think of them as long-term partners, as people who think growth, who think late stage, but they are able to customize that wisdom into what is required through early stage, early growth, right down to growth stage of the company.
So our strategy really is to come in early, continue to follow on invest, but have and build a concentrated portfolio of 4 to 6 high conviction bets each year. That way, we believe that you can't really invest basis consensus building. It really has to be conviction led.
I think we have studied very, very deeply. My CTO has stood on the bus stop for 2.5 years just to get the live tracking right. And people think, oh, live tracking तो easy है, चलो ने solve कर दी. नहीं, चलो ने 2.5 साल सड़क पे खड़े होके solve किए. No, it doesn't come overnight.
Pivots are never easy because the entire business model changes, marketing becomes significant, logistics becomes very, very different. Question of, should City Mall directly acquire the end consumers and give it to the partners, or it should continue growing just through the community partners? And that is where, our discussion with WaterBridge, I clearly remember, was like a huge help during that process.
One thing that's really helpful is that they have a consumer tech thesis, and the fact that they were willing to take bold bets. People were almost like, how would these guys grow? All the social platforms in this space are at hundreds of millions of users. These are guys who are just starting off, and now when we are number one in the country, they've still been our foremost backers.
I believe that fearlessness should come from us first. So when we are fearless, we are able to spot fearless founders.
Across a variety of sectors, from healthcare and global SaaS to mobility and consumer, each of our founders, I would say, are audacious in terms of just the innovativeness of the business models that they've chosen to build. And you will notice this pattern in our portfolio that we've chosen multiple category leaders.
We are the pioneer company who has implemented National Common Mobility Card in this country.
We're the top tech leader in the Forrester Wave in our space.
A city mall micro entrepreneur has been able to increase their household income by almost 100%.
We have around 2,500 plus factories. A good number of factories have consistent capacity utilization coming from business.
We're operating in India, we're operating in the chaos of India, we're operating in this high growth phase of India.
India has reached a stage where there is no aspect of life which is not touched by tech. And tech disruption has to give you an unfair advantage for you to be able to build a more efficient solution using that.
So far, internet has seen the penetration in top 5, top 6%. When you go on to that below 90% or 90% of their audience, their behaviors are very, very diversified. They are not linear in nature. We just have to give them right solutions. It's not that वो tech use नहीं कर सकते. They can use tech. It's just the value proposition should be high, should be good, and should be incentivizing. From day 0 to today, 8 years, my conviction on the opportunity has just increased. And I think over the next 10 years, we would see many bigger outcomes.
And therefore we have to be very entrepreneurial. Our success is heavily correlated with our ability to think like entrepreneurs. As cliched as it sounds, ups and downs do come. Our portfolio construction allows us to take fewer bets and give the due time that companies need to go through some of these pivots and some of these journeys.
This was that phase of 2020. We had almost run out of money. I remember that conversation with Manish, and of course he had many more of those happening. Take the right decisions, do the hard things, do that in one go.
And having seen enough cycles, because these are all cycles. And so in those moments, I think, again, just having a level head, I think that's where I think WaterBridge has been extremely helpful in helping us make the right decisions.
We take a lot of pride in the fact that for every dollar that we have invested, $25 have been put in by external VCs.
I think that gives incredible comfort to founders to know that there is depth in their cap tables.
And that is where it gives a lot of confidence that yes, somebody is backing the business and not just the concept or the field or the sector that they are in. And that is where the business potential just gets reflected to whoever is looking at Loopworm's investor portfolio.
When we came together as a firm, we thought that look, a very disciplined, fundamentals first driven approach can deliver a very distinctively different outcome. Whether you are good on your ESG practices, governance practices, whether it is economic outcomes, the type of business solutions that are getting built, the type of responsible corporate citizens that come out of this. And we have stayed true to that.
The big dream for me is to build a generational VC firm that outlasts the three of us as partners and that creates and touches 1 billion lives by 2030.
With every fund, with every investment in each one of those funds, we're putting one more brick and one more layer to achieve our long-term goal of building the best homegrown venture capital fund out of India. Supposed to say a line about Anshoo. Can I say? My white beard probably will tell you I've worked with a lot of founders, seen a lot of ups and downs. Anshoo honestly represents one of the most versatile, kind, smart, collaborative person and a founder that I've worked with. I think I can come up with a lot of adjectives, but that sort of captures it. I think we have a AV also to talk about his background. So I'm going to stay here. We'll play a little AV on Anshoo.
I was an investor at Lightspeed, and one of the pieces we were doing was offline retail. And Lightspeed had investments in China and US in related companies. And that opportunity around offline retail was too big for us to not focus on that. And as I spent more time around that, spent some time in China looking at everything that's happened here, I was just too excited to say, instead of looking for an opportunity to invest, I'd rather be on the other side and help build out this offline retail ecosystem marketing platform. That's how Magicpin started. At the heart of what Magicpin is, we are a data and technology company. Our idea is that if we know users well, we would be able to match them to the right offline retailers who are looking for these users to come to their stores. Retail is a $1 trillion market, and 90% of this market is offline. And the consumers, however, are now 100% online. They consume content online, but when it comes to spending, they go offline and spend. And the retailer ecosystem in our country, and there are millions of them, they're not going to come online and do CPC, CPM campaigns to get users to come to their stores. And that's where Magicpin comes in. We bring the local markets alive on the users' smartphones, and this is across categories. Basically, every time a user is looking to step out of their homes, we would help them discover everything around them and give them savings on that. There's a very strong belief that what we are building for India's retail ecosystem is needed, it's possible, and we are the best ones to be able to go and accomplish that.
Anshoo, can I have you come up on stage, please? All right, can I, before we start, can I just do a very quick show of hands? How many founders in the audience? Great. How many aspiring founders, wannabe founders? Okay, great. Can I say, how many investors? Let me ask that. Okay, good. Few of us. Wonderful. And I'll just say everybody else is in the catch-all other bucket. Good. So mostly it's a founder-driven audience. People will come in. I think they may have to stand, so don't get intimidated. I know you don't get intimidated easily, but still warning you. So I thought it would be not appropriate if we didn't use or seek questions beyond WaterBridge. We've actually collected some questions from the audience. So if the audience is okay with that, at least the way I wanted to run this panel, I have a list of questions for Anshoo. And I will tell you the source of the question. It's not WaterBridge only, it's not the audience only. It'll give you a sense of where the world is headed. Of course, Magicpin has a big component of, we'll talk about Gen AI, of course. But you'll also see how fast and how dynamic this world is and how fast it's learning around us. So Anshoo, thank you for coming all the way.
Thank you, Manish, for having me.
I know it's very busy times for you. I'm not going to spill the beans, but big things are happening. They're around the corner. I'm going to jump straight in. And knowing you, I'm still giving a warning, but knowing you, I know you'll handle it fine. I'll try and oscillate between Anshoo as a person, as an entrepreneur, as a business builder, company builder, Magicpin as a business, the market and opportunity, all of that, right? Just to keep it
I don't know the difference between the two also, Manish.
Oh my goodness, there you go. So you set the tone well. I'm going to start with your journey as an entrepreneur. This question is from DeepSeek. If you've been living in a cave, then I don't know, but otherwise you know what I'm talking about. There are two parts to the question. I just asked DeepSeek about what to ask Anshoo as an entrepreneur. The first part is, what's the most important trait that has come to being or in play for you as you were building Magicpin? So your entrepreneurial 10-year journey, most important trait. I'm going to throw in the second part also. What in your background, pre-Magicpin, what in your background has positioned you well for the success? I know it's been a very successful journey so far. So two parts of the question, take it in whichever order.
And by the way, if AI is asking such questions, these are actually deep questions. I think
Sam Altman should be worried.
At the heart of it, I think what I have realized, the muscle that needs to be built, and I believe I'm getting better at it, is just being uninhibited. Once you've decided something, being able to give it all that you've got. And I see many other successful founders, right, who've just willed things into existence. That doesn't come from like hedging your risk. It doesn't come from, let me do this to get here and then I'll figure out what to do from there. Being able to like look at the moon, take that shot and just keep going. Being resourceful, hardworking, smart is of course all required. But I'll connect this to the second part also. What in my prior experience helped me, I was a consultant, engineer, investor before I got onto it. I don't think any of those things helped. They all actually came in the way of doing something like this. It took me, and I don't think success, if you call it that now, is
All of that. Consulting, being an investor.
Maybe engineering is
more.
what I would say helped me most.
Okay.
Because all others are very you're kind of balancing risk, right? You're kind of managing risk. But as an entrepreneur, and I don't think I'm still there, but as an entrepreneur, you're supposed to take that risk and solve it. It's not that someone else is going to solve the risk for you. You still have that. But kind of going halfway there, that doesn't work. If you're going in, just go the full hog and don't let anything come in the way.
So identify the moonshot, go full hog, uninhibited.
Yeah.
If you try to measure risk and put a box around it, it's going to be hard.
Yeah.
So can you also tell us how did you then unlearn some of those things and skills that you learned in Bain and at Lightspeed, two very amazing firms in their respective businesses? How did you unlearn some of those traits?
I think the market just forces you to do stuff, and then you say, okay, when I'm doing this, then things are actually working, and then you can train yourself from there onwards.
Interesting. Okay, cool. I'm going to ask a question that Perplexity threw up for us. Perplexity analyzed some of the public videos that you've been on, and you've been speaking about Magicpin and ONDC and lots of things. And the question that it threw up a few questions, but this one, so we put a bit of human intelligence on top, the one we liked. Why is hyperlocal so important in your business? And in retail also, we can speak in general in India. Why is hyperlocal like such a big deal? Yeah. And maybe in that context, talk about how has Magicpin leveraged technology to date to be in the position that you're in?
Yeah. So retail, and you've got that on the video also, it's a $1 trillion market. 90% of it is offline. Offline, of course, can be done only locally. You can't go to a place which is remote. And this is in spite of all the billions of dollars that have gone into building the e-commerce, warehouses, infrastructure. I would call the quick commerce wave to be a hyperlocal wave also. Done differently, not through retailers. But most of our consumption, our experience of the world when we go out with friends, when we get something we want, is actually hyperlocal in nature. And there's a big opportunity there because the time we are spending is all on the device, but the spending we are doing is all in the market. And thus, it is required that there is a platform which bridges both of these things. And especially in the Indian context where the retailer ecosystem is fragmented, no one would be able to build the end-to-end experience. For example, a Decathlon could, or some of those other guys. And that's why all the more a need for something like this to exist. The second part of your question around what technology is doing, I think technology increasingly is lowering the cost for this bridge to exist. These are very tough markets to build because of the hyperlocal nature. It doesn't matter what I acquire as consumers in Bangalore, Koramangala, if another part of Bangalore, which could be just as far away as MG Road, is where my supply is. Leave aside Delhi or Bombay or any other market. You have to get density in that micro market. That's what makes it hard. But if my ways of engaging, acquiring merchants and customers keep getting more and more digitally enabled, then the ways in which one can approach through content and through offers and transactions, I think that changes. So, and it's been 9+ years now that we've been at Magicpin. I would say the best time to do what we started to do 9 years back is now. So,
and very interesting, and say a little bit more about correlation between the hyper locality nature of the business and customer or retailer success. I'm sure you guys measure it.
We have this chart in our system which has put customers on one axis and our margins on the other axis. Okay. And what we find is once the number of customers in a market crosses some 5,000-6,000 transacting users in a month, that micro market starts to break out. It starts to move up and to the right. So it starts to attract more merchants because merchants are there only because customers are there. So they start to bid over each other. They start to put in better offers. As a result, there are more customers who are likely to come in. our referral system on customer side starts to work better, leading to more merchants starting to work in that market. And as a result, these markets who are breaking out, they accelerate further. So the business becomes, how do we get more and more markets through that threshold?
Very interesting. For the benefit of the audience, maybe from a Bangalore context, what is a hyperlocality for Magicpin? Is it all of Indiranagar?
Yeah, so Koramangala, we would define that as one
hyperlocality.
Like roughly a 1.5 2 kilometer radius. That's basically what a market would be, a BTM would be. Yeah.
Interesting. Like I said, I have a long list to go through. I'm going to keep jumping and then we want to save some time for the audience. This is a human question. In the end, we'll, by the way, take a poll on which source of the question seemed like the best for the audience. I won't say which human it is, but the question goes, I'm going to read word for word. Indian consumers are known for their quirks. What's that one consumer insight that made you go, wait, what? Something that's not just unexpected, but sort of like quintessential Indian consumer thing. So from Magicpin experience, any consumer quirk that you can think of?
So some interesting ones and some like basic ones which we realized in hindsight. We said we'll bring a lot of merchants onto the platform, and if there's a large variety of merchants, things will start to move. It didn't happen that way. We realized till the time some of the merchants are just at a very exciting stage of, let's say, 30-40% discount. Even if we have a large assortment, it doesn't work. I'll connect this to another point. Basically, what I'm saying is, if you're building a consumer business, being functional is good. Excitement needs to be captured independent of that. And I'll give an instance of when we began the journey of the company. We started with a hack, which is to say, upload your receipt and we'll give you points for that. I don't know, some people still remember us as that bill upload company. And that was a starting.
There was friction in that.
Yeah. There's friction for us because we had to fund the points. The customers loved it. So the point I was trying to make is that even when that was happening and people were earning points, we realized that over a period we started to ask people to say, okay, send us selfie also. This is all early days, first 6 months of Magicpin. And people said, okay, selfie bhi bhej denge. So pictures started to come in. We started to get those pictures just through, and that rudimentary AI existed then also. We picked the good pictures and started to put them on a stream of just whenever you open Magicpin, those pictures start to show up. We found the engagement shot up, right? People started to open the app and people were looking a lot more at the pictures than the commerce. The commerce, they will figure out.
Pictures of other consumers in their locality.
Yeah, exactly, right? Just the uncertainty around it is what was hooking people. They would open the app a lot more. A friend went there. That'll be a hook. They will come back for that. So it was all great and nice, and we kept doing that. There were two issues which came in. One, we had to fund the points, and we couldn't keep funding the points, and we had to make some adjustments around that. The second thing I realized is that people just started to enjoy the pictures a lot more than the commerce. So people will open the app, they'll just browse the pictures and they'll go back. Right? So we had a second order problem that, okay, what do we do to make sure that people know that we are about commerce and they stay? So we kind of had to take that back. Right? So I think these are all like small tidbits.
And I've been on the board and with you for 9 years. I've not heard this story. And I just remembered Anjali, my partner, you know Anjali well. She and the team writes a very good consumer thesis. They talk about this concept of, what is it, time economy versus money economy, right? And there's a big divergence. This is one such example. That time spent on pictures but not on commerce. Got it. Very interesting.
I can give one more example, which I think anyone building commerce in India would realize. India is such a value-oriented market. You put 5 rupees on the table, someone will come and take it, right? You can get people to do stuff, right? All kinds of stuff if you're stacking up the incentives, right? Which is great when you're building a gamified engine and all of that, right? And we use that. But it's true when you're building a large business, and you need to manage risk. We have riders, we have merchants, we have consumers, and you find all sorts of collusion exist there, right? The same rider who's also the merchant, who's also the consumer, right? Like all of these things exist. And when you think mathematically, you say, yeah, sure, all of these is possible, but you never expect these. So till the time you go into the data and then you realize, okay, this is all that happens, you need to factor that in and you need to keep building around many of these pieces.
Very interesting. No, I was remembering the time when you were incentivizing consumers to sitting in a pub, they go around and then there's a beer, like a mug with wings on it, and that's how you used to capture a lot of local content. But you had to incentivize people with few bucks. And I remember asking the question, "Is that going to work?" And you said, "Yeah, it is. Somebody's there to take those ₹2. Okay, get it." Okay, we've been a bit, I guess, not nice to Mr. Altman, so I'll ask a question from OpenAI. It goes, how do you stay motivated and resilient, especially after setbacks and during times of uncertainty?
I think it's finally to do with that end goal, right? If you're clear that it needs to exist and you've got the connectors right to the end, then you find a way to overcome short-term handicaps, any kind of
Easier
handicap.
said than done. Tell us more.
I'll narrate the story, Manish. I spoke of that earlier also. COVID, I remember this was March 2020. I wrote a note to the board that this is going to be our best month ever. We kill it. Right? And 20th March, everything went down. Nothing. We'd almost run out of money also, thanks to something we could put together around. But at that point in time, like the entire survival thing kicked in, and we ended up building delivery then. Because people stopped going out. We had customers, we had merchants, they were just not going and transacting with
Just
each
for
other.
audience context, Magicpin was only doing F&B at that time.
And going out only. There was no delivery business that existed. We could do it because we believed that it's a matter of time. Let's go over this. It was easier at that point in time to say, "Paisa kadam, yel kadam, kadam," right? But the fact that everyone believed that this can happen, this will happen, we could kind of get through that phase. We got there, building businesses, especially in India, right? Like setbacks is just part of the game, right? Something or the other will keep moving. It's a very competitive market, which everyone here is aware of. A bunch of really smart people who are doing whatever it takes. So you have to and the only way you're motivated is because you believe the end goal is going to work out. I just say that connects back.
So par for the course. Setbacks on any way. Of course, COVID, hopefully it's a one-time event in everybody's life. In fact, I'm going to jump to a question on COVID. It is a human question. You've sort of covered it, but I wanted to ask, pivots happen in a lot of companies. Anybody's been around for as long as Magicpin has been, there'll be some pivots. And I remember during COVID, the F&B to go horizontal pivot and a lot of other services got added. But the reality also is that other than survival instincts, which you mentioned, 9 out of 10 companies fail in these kinds of pivots. What got you through? And talk specifically COVID and Magicpin.
I think first, while we ran out of money and what to do, the good thing was everyone else also did. So there is not that people had many choices. So it came back to, okay, what do we do? I'm saying this not in a trifle, right? It was an important part of that situation. Once we could figure out some amount of capital, and I remember those days, we had a term sheet from I'll call them out also, Samsung, and we were in conversations with others. But the moment this happened, everyone said pencils down. Samsung came back and said that, okay, our term sheet is still there because we got it approved, it'll remain. We could construct a round around that. It was 3 million, we could extend it to 7 million. And that was enough. I remember that conversation. It was 50 crores, right? That's what we said. 50 crores, that's in this market, it's good money. We have the merchants, we have the customers. I asked our engineering team how long it will take to build delivery. They said 2 weeks. That's good. All right, let's get started. That's all it took. That's it. And I would say finally it was the drive within the team to say, we are building this. And the other thing which I said, there was no noise, right? It was not that people had other things to do. So people could just go in, get it to work. And because of all of that work, subsequently our scale up in delivery, food delivery, ONDC, all of those things happened because of that. So I'd say some amount of circumstances, a lot of grit to say, I'm going to see it through, but that grit comes from belief that we'll be able to see the end of this.
So, no, I will add maybe like the board or the investor perspective here. You didn't say it, but luck helped. Everybody was in the same soup. But I do remember that you guys had the DNA to do these experiments. You had the DNA of using technology to do experiments come back with results and say, I did these 5 things, 3 aren't working, 1 is stellar and 1 maybe will work. And that really gave comfort to all of us, even though the money was not in the bank. So there was something else in the DNA other than luck. I just want to make sure the audience understands that. Let me ask the question that has to be asked. How is Gen AI going to transform Magicpin as a business? And think stakeholders. I guess the 2 most important stakeholders are, merchants and customers. What's on the horizon?
And I would generalize this, given there are so many founders right here. I think the world is going to change in 5 years, and I'm not just kind of saying this. The pace at which things are happening, what can happen, that is improving. The cost of doing that is crashing, DeepSeek and everything. So that's a great opportunity to go out and build in this environment. Existing business models will get disrupted in a massive way. The few examples that we are already fairly deep on is, for example, our sales function. That's a fair bit of what we do, merchant outreach. Being able to use a voice which has an emotion which is able to hook a merchant, and the data that can make sure that you don't let the merchant go, I think now is done far better through a machine than it is done through people.
A voice
at
meaning
scale,
like dial a
consistent.
phone number.
It's getting to the point where you can't differentiate from the other side. And this is available. It'll take the big guys a couple of years to figure out. Because, and I'm not talking about the startup big guys, they are equally agile and nimble. But generally the industry, they're the large retailer, they have 60 crores of annual spend. That spend is just going to go away. And the CIO there would take a while, because taking away the entire 60 crore means they are no longer required. So I think there is just so much that's going to happen in that space that it's just going to be phenomenal, right? So for us, we have basically, if I take the business, it's merchant acquisition engagement, customer acquisition engagement. I think on this complete 2x2, we would put all interactions on this Gen AI piece, whether it is voice, video, content creation. For example, a small merchant in Commercial Street here, they take a picture of a kurti with their phone. We would transform it, put it on a model. It'll look great the way they've never.
Human model and a picture.
Human model and a picture, right? And you can do it with jeans, you can do it with anything. And it's happening. The more it's happening, it's like browsing an e-commerce store like behavior, but for Commercial Street. So you can see the products. You asked, what is it that will be different through technology? When we start, and I said this is the best time, because in the past, we were able to bring the retailer and say, hey, 20% off at this store, this RR Garments. Who's going to go to RR Garments for 20% off? But if I show now this product, which is priced at, let's say, like 149 rupees, that you can now go and pick up. It transforms how retail is consumed by digital audience.
And it's at the level of, let's just say, Myntra or Flipkart or Amazon.
Exactly. So I think the local merchants can participate in this digital economy because the cost of doing these things is just crashing. And Gen AI has got a big role to play in it.
Is that coming on Magicpin's account? Or the merchant is going to be willingly spending on
it? The cost is just crashing.
So
it's like 1 rupee to do a 1 minute call.
That's it,
right? It's that already. And the more competition happens on LLMs, the more that cost crashes. Like,
say something about customer engagement, that box of the 2x2, Gen AI, what will Magicpin be doing?
Something as simple as, so there's fancier stuff like cross-selling, someone bought this. That's like boring, right? Copyright issues aside, if there's an Amitabh Bachchan movie, I can call a customer in Amitabh Bachchan's voice and say, there's a movie and there's a 30% off, buy it on Magicpin.
Wow, okay.
I think that is phenomenal. It'll change everything. And when we put that in different channels, digital is no longer on the app then, right? It's all around.
How amazing. My goodness. Scary, but amazing for Magicpin. I know the numbers. I've seen the numbers go up quite significantly. Speaking of which, I want to talk about ONDC. This was quite a revelation when this happened. ONDC in particular, but also I'm saying specifically for Magicpin. So the question is how, and this is back to OpenAI question. You speak a lot about ONDC, so they picked up, I guess. How have you leveraged ONDC for Magicpin? And why is, like you search ONDC and retail, Magicpin comes up.
So
two
this
of the
is
top
a little bit
feelings.
of being
So there's something to
uninhibited,
do
right?
there.
If
like-
you're going to go for something, you have to go for it all the way. So we realized that.
And I ask it with the, the idea is a lot of founders here. You had an open platform available to you. And like, how do you really become so tied to it that, you make the full use of the opportunity?
And some of this is also, we were at the right place at the right time. And that's a lot about building businesses also. You have to survive enough such that some of those pieces start to happen. So we built delivery post-COVID. It was working well. And at some point, ONDC also started to become big. I remember the conversation with Kushi, who's the head of ONDC. At some point, he called and he said that you have all of these merchants, you should bring them onto Magicpin. And he said, just bring them on. And he told me about his background. He was part of NSDL, etc. He'd been into a bunch of places. He said, okay, what goes off our back? Right? He literally said that. And his point was that I'll have big guys on the other side who would generate demand for you. Our business is to drive demand to our partners.
Big guys meaning, example, Paytm or somebody.
Yeah. Paytm, Tata, Ola, all of these guys, right? Who had more DAOs more users beyond the users we have. Then why would we not do it? So we asked an intern to start to do the plumbing and they did it. And nothing happened. Like, it was not a surprise, nothing happened for quite some time. We realized nothing is happening because every category has a unique journey of discovery and transaction. Payments is different. But if you're going to buy food, you're already used to how you buy food, right? You need certain filters, you need certain kind of pictures, you need a bunch of things. So putting this into a payments app is not going to move anything. So we realized, okay, it's not enough to just plug in. So we had built it in our app. We converted that into a simple web kind of plugin such that we have an icon on Paytm and you click on it and you land on the same experience which you would in any other food delivery app. That got picked up and that became a news. I remember this was May of 23 and that started to just kind of ramp up. And that was for the first time everyone discovered ONDC. Now the good thing was that we had ball control from a supply point of view. Fulfillment we had sorted, catalogs we had sorted, all of these pieces were already there and we were doing that for our business. The moment the orders started to come in, we could go and deliver them.
Supply meaning you had the merchant partnerships already.
Partnerships, right? So it could start to go. Once that started to happen, then more things started to happen. More demand side folks started to come in. I remember so my Lightspeed days, we had the misfortune of saying no to Bhavish at Ola. But I had the relationship and we knew that he built food delivery a few times before. So we had the conversation with him and said, let us run it for you. And Bhavish being how he said, okay, I'll scale this. And we formed a good partnership. It was through ONDC. And that partnership was also interesting because he said, I have got EVs, which if you can increase fill rates for, that's a great thing. So the order would originate on Ola, come to Magicpin's merchants. We will bounce it back to Ola for a rider assignment. It'll come back to us and it'll deliver to the Ola customer. I think more pieces started to happen. And then that scaled up to 100,000 orders a day. But the job is not done. I think what we could do with this is that in two markets, Delhi and Bangalore, we could get to around 10% of food delivery market share, which is meaningful. But what it did is that it created in the minds of the retailers a platform, a third alternative. And they were genuinely looking for that. That came in, and now that we have a playbook which is much better set, what we are doing is stamping it out in other markets.
Very interesting. A lot of hidden messages in there. But it's also, I'm hearing, let me not solve for everything. I mean, you literally, when you talked about bouncing around, using their riders, but you also built something in logistics. How do you talk about that?
Yeah. So what happened is Bangalore was working very well. Delhi was working very well. Maharashtra was not working. Mumbai is not working. Pune is not working. The reason is that there are no bike taxi licenses there. So it's a regulatory issue. So we realized to build these markets, we need to now deploy what we call our fleet. So we had to build that. Now we have 50,000 riders on that fleet. But again, I would say the cost of building the rider infrastructure. So we would now send out the order to the other third-party logistics, but also to our guys. And here we have much better control and understanding. We can run gamification, just like the consumer side. We can run this whole ecosystem. And this allowed us to increase the reliability. I know in Mumbai, for example, 20% of the orders we'd just say no to. And if you see no to an order, right, like 2 times out of 10, you just not come back to the app. Like, it's not about whether you were successful 80%, you just lose the customer. Now that number is down to 1%, it's as good as Delhi. So it was an important part for us to figure out. And once we unlocked that, then we could start to deploy that.
No, I remember that board discussion when I think we all concluded that it better be 95% plus delivery, success rate. Otherwise, no point building that business. But there's something to be said about, again, the DNA. You guys, found a hole in this whole solution, but you built it very, very quickly. Yeah. How is all of that? Like, there is a pattern here I've seen over the last 9 years.
Yeah. No,
you had strong CTOs. I know that. You had a very strong product focus. I know that. A lot of the times we have debate around, are you building for the customer? There's a product for the customer or the customer for the product. But what is like a core part of the DNA here that you guys come back, iterate and come back fast? And again, as a lesson to maybe founders who are in the 0 to 1, 0 to 5.
I think in general we are strong on like product and tech. In general, we are just strong on that. The team now over the years loves these challenges where you, like the rider app I spoke of, we built that in like 3 weeks, 0 to complete, deployed. And within the next 2 months, we had 50,000 riders on it. It's not, however, like some things, you enjoy doing. It shouldn't feel like you are having to drag yourself out and do this. So the intersection of, I think, what you love doing, and if you can play the game where that's what matters more, then the odds are better. So we're fast because we like doing that.
Interesting. I'm watching the time. I want to keep time for audience. 1 or 2 questions from me. This is a nice segue into something we wanted to ask. This is a human question. Culture. How have you built the culture for Magicpin, and think from a broader context of helping the audience? And has it changed from the early days to now?
I think we've become more direct and clear. Like this piece around what I said, being uninhibited, like going for it.
More direct now.
More direct now versus trying to just like trying to make sure everything is right. That doesn't work, right? Like once we've agreed on something, we'll just go at it. We know pace at which we go is our biggest strength. So once there is clarity, just going after that. And people enjoy that, right? They've seen success after success after success. So it's now deeply entrenched in their mind.
In the early days, though, when it's harder, culture is still very fluid.
Yeah, culture is fluid, but I think the amount of energy you have when you're starting out is just massive, right? You can come in and do stuff a lot more. Keeping that, you might go wrong a lot more also. So you're maybe doing more things. When you are further along, it is easier because you're taking those bets in a very focused way and with a clear way. I'd say that, like for me, what has been the most enjoyable part is just the energy on the floor. And that's what gets me out every day to say, okay.
So early days, you're saying just naturally use that excitement and energy.
Yeah.
I have one last question and we'll sort of move it to the audience. This is a deep seek question again. You've been speaking about Bharat in something, so it picked up. How will Magicpin succeed in Bharat? And I'll add the human element to it towards the end, which is like what is working in Sarojini Nagar in Delhi or Indira Nagar in Bangalore? Will the same work in a Nagpur or a Kanpur for Magicpin? Why so?
I think it will work because customers there are already online. The whole of India is already online. The problems remain similar. What is different between a Nagpur and let's say an Indira Nagar is that the noise is less in Nagpur. So customers are also aware of those retailers a lot more from an offline perspective. But increasingly, the way spending power is growing up in those markets, the way supply is like just blossoming out, I think there'd be more this need for something to exist in the middle. Now, our business is about density. We have got enough ground to cover India's top 10 cities, so we are going deep on that first because that's how it explodes. But at some point, that's what technology should allow you to go deep and to go wide at the same time. So I think when do we start to open some of those pieces? That's just a function of.
But nothing is going to fundamentally change in the product and the approach. You're saying same customer behavior, merchant behavior is going to translate.
Yeah.
Interesting. Cool. We have 10 minutes left. There may be a lot of questions. I'm going to ask the audience. Please raise your hand if you have a question. Please, just question better be a question, not a sermon. And one line, name and where are you from? And please ask the question to Anshoo as directly as possible.
Hey, hi. This is Supriya from the Times of India. I quickly wanted to touch a little bit about corporate governance, since that's being spoken about quite a bit this week, right? This whole precedence around, maybe Manish, you can take the question as well. This whole precedence around investors stepping down from the boards, it's not fairly common in the entire ecosystem. So maybe the both of you can have different POVs in terms of what's really going on there. I'm sure these are very isolated cases, but how do you best avoid such situations going forward?
You've been an investor also. Maybe you go first. Look, some of this is, I'll say maybe a three element answer. India is still a young market when we talk of private markets and startups. The young market means lots of first-time entrepreneurs. It also means first-time investors, folks who haven't seen cycles, down cycles. So some of what is playing in here is also a function of that people are just learning through all of it for the first time. So that is changing as India's market is maturing. And we're, of course, I don't have to tell you about where it used to be in private markets to where public markets are in new tech and new age companies. So issue of maturation, it'll solve for itself over time. Having said that, look, corporate governance, it's human nature. Whether it's tech businesses or non-tech businesses, you'll always have some people part of a big universe that will want to cut corners and will take somebody for a ride at the expense of somebody else. So if we actually look at, I think I know what you're referring to this particular week. If you look at the 5 or 6 or 7 big examples, large companies where this issue came up, it's still a small part of the universe. And it is not disproportionately high compared to the non-tech universe. So does it worry me as a part of the ecosystem? Not really. At the same time, it's an issue of, we're going through a cycle of maturation, it'll change. And lastly, I think to each his own. Look, there are founders and investors and therefore boards where high corporate governance and the importance of it comes naturally to them. And you can see it. I mean, I'm on maybe, 9 or 10 boards. I'll say 6 or 7 of them it's like boilerplate. You have to be very aware of that. And there are other boards where it takes time to get to that common ground. So yeah, it's WIP, if I were to summarize it. But I'm not worried looking at it from a forest view. I don't know if you want to add.
I would just reiterate what Manish said. It's hygiene. You have to do the right thing. Of course, build value, but while doing the right thing. Otherwise, everything done can just go away. It's not worth the risk at all in any way.
Sorry, gentleman, the blue shirt.
Hi, Amir here, ex-Sudan and Global Fair. My question to Anshoo is, are there any categories or verticals where you feel like the density probably may not be an issue, where you could be sparse? And are there any plans for your, sort of in future moving into any of those categories?
Yeah, I think ticket sizes increase the likelihood of someone traveling the distance. For example, if you're going to have QSR, you really want it to be 100, 200 meters. If you're willing to spend, let's say 2,000 rupees, you could go for a fine dine place which is further along, or you can buy apparel which is further along. If you're going to buy furniture worth 80,000 rupees, maybe you can travel 15 kilometers, right, to go to the place, or go to an IKEA or something, right? So it's all to do with the nature of the product being purchased. The way we are thinking about this is that pockets where we have density, we start with high frequency, which is F&B, delivery, then going out, moving towards fashion, apparel, or nightlife experiences, and then start to add more of high ticket, low frequency, but possibly higher absolute margin categories, furniture, opticians, jewelers, right? Which we can do because we have a lot of customers who are transacting in that area. So yes, we believe our business is about all categories. We can't start with that other extreme because then we'll not have frequency. We have to start on high frequency and then we go towards the other categories.
Please. Oh, sorry, after that.
Hey, my name is Saurabh. I'm the founder of Zen Statement. The question for you is that when we are looking at these kind of like low ticket items being delivered at whatever speed and all, right? How do you think of the financial sustainability of this business model, and how do you bring in that financial prudence in Magicpin?
Second one is, I'll answer first. I think what we try to do is just create a very objective frame for anything which is likely to like burn money. In fact, at our end, we close our P&L every day, every morning, 9:15, we'd be able to see if something's kind of going amiss. It takes time. To that extent, the training at Bain, etc., that helped, right? To just kind of be numbers first, be objective, be able to see many of these things, and instrumenting things before we begin. A lot of such high frequency things are actually very low margin things. So unless you instrument it right from the beginning, it'll not work. And even if you are negative to begin with, you need to know what at scale will make it positive and start to do that. For example, in our business, as we start to grow, ads and monetization starts to generate more cash. But you have to, it's not that one day you can wake up and do it. So you need to start to build the muscle and make sure that you're moving in that direction. You speak of economics for low ticket items, right? If you can't do distant deliveries. Our design on density makes our delivery distances be 2 kilometers. Then in a 30 rupee delivery fee, I can manage. So I can manage a 30% margin on a 100 rupee SKU and I can recover my delivery cost. So these things need to come together and you need to think of that in advance versus scaling and then realizing. We've done our share of mistakes also, not that we were always that measured, but now I think we've got to the point where before we begin, we do all of these pieces and are able to take more informed calls.
Hello, I'm Ishita from Razorpay Rise, and I wanted to understand from you that we've been talking about the consumer side, but for your merchants or retailers, what are some of your strategies of retention beyond your core product offering?
So back to the bill and the receipt days, the way we understood who are the merchants to go out and reach was by understanding which merchants are we getting consumer receipts from. And then we'll go back and show them, you rank number 7 in your neighborhood. These are the 6 guys in your category around you who are ahead of you. And do you want to get ahead of them? What do merchants care about most? They care about their customers and their competition. And the moment we hook that in, we are able to sensitize them and say, okay, with Magicpin, this is what I'm going to get. It is our core offerings. It's not a non-core offering. But how you approach even that, that changes things. It let us crash our merchant acquisition. Our merchant acquisition still happens remotely without meeting the merchant. 95% of our merchant acquisition happens that way. And we could scale many markets without putting physical teams there. Once a merchant scales, the most important thing for the merchant is still why did the merchant come on board, which is to get demand. And that does not change. So the new idea cannot replace the reason for the merchant's existence. But what we've realized over a period, things like advance, credit, and this is different for different kind of merchants. Like for example, if it's a bar or a pub, right? Over the weekend, they need to buy alcohol. And I know now this, after speaking to many of these guys, so they would appreciate if they can get an extra advance from us. Whatever we had to pay them, if we can pay that in advance, they are happy to give us additional take rate or marketing fee for it. Right? So we realized, okay, there's a need in this area. But there's an associated risk with that. Anyone in the lending business would tell you it's so easy to give money away. But so it needs to be done carefully. On the other hand, a Kirana or a fast-moving QSR shop is far more good for their money. But they are also far more judicious about how to take money. So we realized at if payments is the core, marketing is one need and credit is the other need. These are two core pieces. Beyond that, I heard Udan a little bit before that. So like procurement is another need. And if you can start to stitch these pieces together, being able to talk to, for example, an FMCG brand to say, you stock your product at the merchant and we will drive demand for you. The merchant is open, but none of this can come without the realization that the merchant is with you for the demand. As long as you keep doing that, you're building a platform which can unlock more needs for the merchants that you can fulfill.
I'm going to add a question because it linked to a couple of those. Magic Now was introduced, and I know it's been quite a success. But speak more generally. Quick commerce in India, hype or real?
Oh, real, absolutely. And I think that's one of the examples of Moonshot going for it. These guys built it out, right? I would say Zepto, right? And Blinkit, right? These guys changed the way. It's a very tough business, very like super low margin business, right? What we were just discussing. But what exists now is here to stay. And I would say that if 24 was about the rise of quick commerce, 25 is going to be about how the rest of the retail ecosystem reacts to that. And we are in that place where we are saying that, okay, we will do stuff for you. We will get you to be, it's not that many of these guys are going to roll over and die, right? They are going to be there, right? They want to be online. And they are thus working with us to say, what are the approaches? Magic Now is one such approach where we are saying, okay, we'll do 15-minute deliveries for you. But not just that, across categories, fashion apparel retailers, bags or cosmetics, all of them are saying that I want to be part of the online journey.
You were saying, back to your earlier answer, that it's not just a reactive thing from Magicpin.
Yeah.
You have instrumented this to be a profitable business as part of the overall.
Absolutely.
Time for maybe one question. I'm looking at the clock up there. Gentleman there in the black jacket.
Hi, myself Saurabh, and like I have used a couple of times Magicpin, and as you said earlier that you are data and tech company. One of your integration happened with Zomato, synced your contacts. So do you are like doubling down with other integrations where importing data, or either it's address or interest or anything like that?
Yeah, I think as many sources as we can find to provide a better experience to the consumer, we would absolutely do those. For example, once receipts kind of went out of fashion, we started to ask users if they would be okay and let us read SMSs. We will give them customized offers for those. Whatever way we can absorb more data such that we can go back and say something that adds value to that merchant, we would look for those integrations, whether directly from Magicpin or any other sources.
Thank you. We promise that we'll start on time and we'll end on time. I know we could go on for hours. I'm sure there's so much wisdom in there. I have 20 new questions that are spinning in my head, but some other day, some other time. Thank you for being here. I think we have a little something.